Hello, welcome to another parenting and mental health series. We're going to get started. I'm so glad to have you with us. And for all of those that are new, my name is Dr. Court, and I am going to talk to you about tonight we're going to talk about parenting and mental health. Specifically, we're going to talk about perfectionism. So, in the perfectionism trap. Sorry for a little bit of that rough start. It was very imperfect, wasn't it? Very intentional. Not really. Um, okay, I'm Dr. Court. I'm from Bay Community Health, and we do this every Wednesday. Sometimes I'm able to have folks join me online. Most of the time, I do this, I record it, we post it on our Facebook page. So please go see us on our Facebook page or on our YouTube channel, and you can watch this recording. And if you ever have any ideas as to what you want me to cover from a parenting and mental health perspective, please post your ideas on Facebook and we will be sure to get to them. So tonight, like I said, we're covering the perfectionism trap. Specifically, we're going to go over some facts. We're going to talk about how to recognize whether you yourself or your child are in that perfectionism trap, and then how to model some behavior and to do some things that can help reduce that perfectionism mindset. So tonight, what I want to talk about is, I get it. Every parent wants their child to be successful in life, but sometimes our kids have excessively high standards, or we have excessively high standards for them. And if something they do isn't flawless, we may become overly critical. It might be something that stemmed from our own childhood. We're really good at something, we expect them to be just as good, or maybe we weren't and thought we could have been better. And then we push that ideal or that expectation onto our children. This pursuit of perfectionism can become totally unhealthy and actually interfere with what you want your child to or what you want to accomplish. And in fact, I'm here to tell you, perfectionism is a myth. There's no such thing. Okay. I talk about it with diamonds all the time. Diamonds are an imperfect stone. Imperfect. They're not perfect. In fact, that's what makes them a diamond and not a synthetically generated cubic zirconium, which is supposedly perfect. Okay. So what is imperfect is actually valued more. And we are all perfectly imperfect. We all make mistakes. What can happen when we fall into this perfectionism trap? Well, as adolescents face all these challenges of growing up and we prepare them to try and be successful and be high achievers, sometimes we push them to be perfectionists. So we're going to talk tonight about some better approaches and some tips that can be helpful. So are we talking about unhealthy or maladaptive perfectionism? It's associated with a host of physical and mental health challenges in teens, such as obsessive compulsive disorder, eating disorders, anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, suicidal thoughts, and all or nothing thinking. These are obviously things we don't want for our children. So recognizing that our push for perfect can sometimes push them to these sorts of things, these sorts of challenges, might give us pause before we push for perfectionism. And I'm going to give you some ideas on how to push slightly differently. I will be the first to tell you there was a time in my life where I pushed for perfectionism, and I am very happy to tell you I am a recovering perfectionist. And now, as you can tell by my hair, I don't do things perfectly anymore, and it feels great. And I get so much more out of life from this. So we're going to listen to a couple videos tonight, a couple different stories, and go into how perfectionism can be so detrimental. Give me a second while I share. I stopped sharing for a second. I'm going to share a different screen so we can watch this video. Sure, I'm going to the right one. Let's see if I get this right. I want to go to there. Here. We're going to it. I promise I'm getting us there. Somehow we will get there. Okay, here we go. And I want to make sure that I optimize for sound. That used to be something we always had to check on, but I'm not seeing it. So hopefully everyone will be able to hear this.
Learn to do better. And so-called failures are lessons in disguise. Contrast that with a fixed mindset, which is the idea that you're born smart or not, talented or not, athletic or not. People with a fixed mindset avoid failure at all costs because failing shakes the very foundation of who they are. Those with a growth mindset embrace failure because they know they'll learn from it, that it's part of the process of stretching themselves and becoming better. Research shows parents can help their kids develop a growth mindset by how they praise them. Children continually praised for being smart or talented grow up afraid of being anything else. Those praised for working hard and persevering develop a passion for growth. Parents, how do you recognize perfectionism in your teen? And especially, how can you tell when it's leading to anxiety or depression? One of the best ways is to develop a strong relationship with your child. Make sure they know that talking with you is a safe place. So try hard to reserve judgment. And I know that's really hard. Bring up the topic of mental health from time to time and try to normalize talking about it. Some signs of anxiety include constant worrying and fears, and also low self-esteem. Some signs of depression include sadness and irritability, a loss of interest in friends, school, or other activities, and sleeping more or less than usual. Asking for help from your pediatrician is a good place to start. Be careful about those mental strength coaches or mental performance consultants. They are not necessarily focused on treating mental health concerns. Encouraging a growth mindset rather than focusing on performance is one way parents can help relieve the incredible pressure that's placed on teens. Developing strong relational health with your child is another. Check out the description of this video for more tips on.
Thank you for that. And we're going to keep on moving. So I hope that little video was a good kind of beginning to some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight. And I hope you were able to hear all of that. I realized that some of that may not have come through as clearly as we wanted. Okay, so let's go to the next page. So some other things that we want to spend time thinking about is we want to pay attention to, oh, whoops, sorry about that. So the difference between healthy striving and toxic perfectionism. So perfectionism in children and teens has increased over 33% over the last 3 decades, which is greater than the rate of inflation. It's greater than the rate of a lot of things. And it's part of a larger society-wide trend that includes things like tighter competition for admissions to top colleges, skyrocketing cost of education, more concern, we've talked about this before, about safety of our children because we have more access to seeing and hearing about when things go wrong. So we assume that that's normal and we become more fearful, and that develops that kind of that helicopter parenting approach, right? Also, we have social media, so that's drawing comparisons with a larger audience of people that we have constant access to. And think about it, how many people on social media post bad pictures? I think my social media picture is from like 12 years ago. Why? Because I love that picture. I think it's a beautiful picture of my husband and I. So why would I change it? So, all these comparisons, and then of course, marketing, advertising, folks that we definitely demonize for, in some reasons, good reasons, right? Because they take pictures of people and they alter them to make them look thinner, prettier, younger, right? They market so we want to buy their products, and that type of thing will lead to this striving for a type of perfectionism. So what's the difference between perfectionism and striving, like a healthy striving? Well, part of the difference you'll see, and we'll go into even more when you recognize how you can recognize when your child is in that negative, maladaptive perfectionism loop. When you're in a healthy striving mindset, versus problematic perfectionism, anything that comes short of perfect is perceived as a failure. So that goes along with that kind of all or nothing. It's that rigid, critical mindset and negative view of mistakes. And they're strongly linked to poor mental and physical health, right? Toxic perfectionism in children and teens typically shows up, and we're going to go over some of these again in a second, but shows up where they're holding themselves to unrealistic standards. They have heightened sensitivity to flaws or mistakes. They might be overly critical of others that have flaws or mistakes too. They're interpreting mistakes as failures and tend to have all or nothing thinking. If I don't get an A, I might as well not go. I've had clients before, teens, that were talented athletes, good students, and because they weren't recruited by a Division I school, and we're hearing this a lot in the sports world, D1 or nothing at all. That's a perfectionist mindset, which can really be detrimental for kids. It doesn't mean don't strive to play in a D1 school, but like I was talking about with sports the last couple of weeks, you have about only 2% of high school athletes play college athletics. So let's make sure we're making our expectations realistic and we strive for them, but we don't, and we also make them realistic, and we don't make it all of their personality, right? So these tendencies can produce, when we strive for perfect, right, with that all or nothing, these kids will develop feelings of shame, and shame's a really scary feeling because shame is the result of other people's expectations on us, not what we expect of ourselves, but what others expect of us. Guilt, when we feel we've let someone down or done what was not socially acceptable. Humiliation, again, another external force saying what we're doing isn't the right thing, and embarrassment. So these are all these emotions that are generated by external forces and not intrinsic to how we feel about ourselves, right? Because those feelings are so distressing, a perfectionist kid may try to avoid taking risks to avoid making mistakes. It can look like things like procrastination, or not trying, even laziness. They might take an excessively long time. And like I said, we're going to go into a lot of this in a second. And it could actually lead to burnout. I certainly see that in sports where kids are striving for perfection. If they don't get what they want, they stopped having fun. And then after they stop having fun, they burn out before they actually achieve the goal they really wanted. I have certainly seen these parents pushing their kids for perfectionism in both academic and sports settings, where certainly in sports settings, then later in life, the child stays away from sports because they had such a bad experience with being pushed to be perfect. Um, it also creates an unhealthy relationship with their teammates and their friends. Because if their friends don't do things perfectly, then they feel like they shouldn't hang out with them, or they're not good enough, or maybe they felt like they're not good enough to hang out with their friends. So it can really create this negative flywheel and just becomes more and more unrealistic and less resilient in life. So if that hasn't convinced you, here are a few more things we can look out for if you think maybe you or your children have fallen into this perfectionism trap. So what does it look like? Well, it looks like someone that has a tendency to become highly anxious, angry, or upset at making any mistake because they assume that mistake is failure, and failure is a knock on who they are as a person, right? So it crushes their identity. They will chronically procrastinate because they're afraid of making a mistake. And they have difficulty completing even easy tasks because they're afraid they won't do them well. Or maybe I've seen this in kids, they'll start and do something, an activity where they initially have this, pure, innocent confidence, and they watch someone else do it better than they did it. And they immediately shut down and say they don't want to do it anymore. It's not fun anymore. Gee, that sounds horrible, right? And the whole point is to learn from other people, right? Everyone around us has something to teach us. So they get easily frustrated and give up, which is what I was just kind of describing. They have a chronic fear, like we talked about a second ago, of humiliation or embarrassment. They're overly cautious and thorough in tasks. For example, spending 3 hours to write a paragraph, or they're stuck on a single sentence because they just can't figure out the right words to put in it. They might try repetitively to complete something, and then they tear up whatever they've done. This also happens in writing. This happens when your child maybe writes something, you ask to review it, and the second you give any critical feedback, they tear it up, launch into a catastrophic reaction, tantrums, tears, you hate me, I'm worthless, right? Automatic negative thoughts because they didn't do it well enough. Okay. And then ultimately, what this will result in is the lack of wanting to try anything new, which of course is stunting their growth as a person, right? They're not continuing to learn. They're not continuing to, this will hurt them socially later when they are afraid to go out and meet new people, especially after they're out of school. I see that a lot with perfectionist adults that are very lonely because they're afraid to go out and put themselves out there. So this can manifest in a lot of ways and be detrimental. So we want to try and reset. And the good news is there is a way to change, even if you're a perfectionist. There's a way for you to start to shift your habits and behaviors that can also help change your children's habits and behaviors. It is not as easy as just modeling it and hoping your child follows it. There is some follow through that has to happen, but it is possible. And I have seen it in my own world. So, wanted to introduce you to the art of putting broken pieces back together and making them even more beautiful than when it was whole. It's called kintsugi, and it is an ancient Japanese practice built on the idea of embracing flaws and imperfections so you can create something that is even stronger and more beautiful than before. Every break is unique, and instead of repairing an item like new, this technique actually highlights the scars by using them as part of the design. And often, what you can see here, often in this practice is they use gold or silver or something beautiful to mend the cracks. And this is used as a metaphor for healing ourselves and teaching ourselves the important lesson that sometimes it's the process of repairing things that have been broken where we actually become stronger, more unique, and more resilient. So this can be very helpful in teaching our children how to deal with this perfectionist mindset if that's where they are. Like the video said, first, you want to be a safe place to talk. And you want your kids to feel like they can come talk to you. So here's a red flag. If every time your child makes a mistake, you blow up and yell at them, you're not a safe place to talk. So that's something that you're going to have to adjust. And that might mean, and I talk with a lot of parents about this, you might have to look at your own self-care strategies. If you come home and even when your child leaves a dish out and you blow up at them, or they forget to make their bed, or they didn't do their homework right away when they got home and you blow up on them, there might want to be a little looking in the mirror at what you need to do to be able to react appropriately to the situation at hand, right? Those types of things are not the end of the world. And I am not saying this from a place of judgment. I have been there myself where I have blown up at my kids. And I think I've talked about this in previous sessions where I've had to go back and mend the relationship and explain to them that it wasn't the appropriate response and that I needed to do a better job of being grounded when, certain things were happening. So it does take practice, it does take work, and the success and the outcome of these things can create something even more beautiful and more resilient in the end. Okay, so you want to be a safe place to talk. You want to change the words that you're using and the way you speak with your kids about mistakes, about what they're working towards, and we're going to go into more detail. The first thing you want to focus on in terms of helping your child overcome perfections is you want to start to create something called a growth mindset. So we're going to watch a video in a second, and while I get that set up, I want to talk to you about a few things that can be helpful in creating a growth mindset. First of all, you want to, for your child, praise the process. When we praise the process, we are doing a much better job for our kids in terms of creating growth mindset. Because when you praise the process, you're not focusing on the outcome. So in the last couple of weeks, I was talking about sports and parenting, and one of the quotes that I used was that winning isn't, oh gosh, now I'm gonna mess up the quote. But basically what was saying was that your child winning a game was not actually the result of their hard work. It was like a byproduct, right? Really, their hard work created better skills, more teamwork, and the byproduct was winning, right? So don't make a byproduct your goal. Don't make the outcome your goal. Make the process of the learning, process of incrementally getting better at something, whether it's the process of working through something that's difficult. When we work to activities to make people feel more confident, the best way to make somebody feel more confident about themselves is not to give them an easy task that they know they can do. It's to give them a hard task that's just hard enough. And that's a little bit of a spoiler alert. We're going to talk about that later. So praise the process. Along with praising the process, you want to emphasize that along the process, we're going to mess up. And the whole point is that failure doesn't make them less of a person. It's failure is part of the learning process. There's the quote of like, Edison took 1,000 tries before he got the light bulb. And then, all the sports quotes of different players, failing to make their varsity team or getting cut or getting injured and coming back, all these things, right? Failure, that doesn't make them less of a person. It's what they take from that, right? They say the measure of you is not how many times you fall, but how many times you get back up. And that's what you want to focus on. So saying things and giving feedback when you're praising them or emphasizing the process of, failure is how we learn, is using feedback like, wow, you worked really hard on that. Or that looked like something that was really tough and you stuck with it, and look at how that showed. Or, praising the process. For children that are younger, it's just saying, wow, I'm so proud of you for trying that. Or laughing when something falls down, right? With little kids, when they build bricks, they love to smack them and mess them all up. That's fun for them. And then at some point, that becomes unfun, because the whole point is to make this perfect little tower. And oh no, no one's going to mess it up. I mean, spend some time, and this is actually something that I was talking about with some coach friends of mine, is actually doing exercises where the point is to screw up and then figure out how to work around it. So purposely creating mistakes so that you can get used to them and learn how to work through them. And you have to, so you want to, as part of that, you want to teach, and this was kind of pointed at teachers, but also with parents, instead of focusing on the outcome, you focus on the process. Like, isn't it fun to learn about this new thing? Or, wow, did you know? So really getting that awe-inspiring kind of feeling when you're learning something new. And when you don't know something, say, I don't know. Let's learn about it. Let's go figure it out, right? Getting excited about not knowing something, because that gives you a chance to learn about it. I mean, we can look anything up today from our smartphones and our smart devices. So learn, right? And get excited about it. And when we're teaching, and this is pointed at teachers, like I said, you want to teach for understanding and how the child applies that information, not for facts. Now, I know this is easier said than done, because it is harder to teach for understanding and application than it is to teach for facts. It's easy to give a test where they have to regurgitate words or facts or a system, or they have to break down steps. It's much harder to say, hey, we've talked about these steps for days. Now you need to apply these steps to this problem, right? And a lot of times in young kids, we don't think they can do that. They're actually excellent at it, because they've been watching and trying to model our behavior and mimic process and applying what they're learning since they were babies. So don't underestimate your young children's ability to understand and then to apply what they've learned. Create a culture in your household of trying new things. This can be trying new exercises that are challenging, right? I found one the other day that it's called the Nordic hamstring something. Anyway, it's to strengthen your hamstrings. And you have to put it on the back of the door. And it is, I thought I had strong legs. Oh my gosh. It is such a hard task. And you can look it up, Nordic hamstring exercise on YouTube. And then the guy that you see on there makes it look really easy, then try it. And it's so hard. Anyway, like, my kids were excited to try it. We all tried it, and we all failed miserably, and we laughed about it. And then we tried it again, and we were trying to see how far we could get. And it's all about trying new things and just trying to embrace that process. Whether this is trying new foods, you can celebrate trying a new food, finding new recipes, letting your kids, this happens a lot with kids, and trying to get them to try new foods. Help them. Don't underestimate your child's ability to help you with the process. So let them get out the recipe books or go on Google and tell them, like, okay, we're going to search this word and this word, peppers and beef. And you look it up, and the kids can go through with you and figure out new recipes. Like, let's try this one. And if they don't like it, that's okay, but they tried it, right? The whole part is the process. We want to embrace change. Change is one of the few things that is a given and a constant. We are constantly changing. Our world is constantly changing. And so to be fearful of change, well, the fear of the unknown can be a real thing and is scary. We know things are going to change. So embracing change and walking through, okay, well, how do we work with this change? And how do we work with now this new situation? That's going to help your kids be better at making new friends, because they're going to know how to interact with the new kid in the room, or the new kid on the team, or the new teacher at the start of the school year, or the substitute teacher that comes in because the other teacher leaves. They will become so much more resilient if you really embrace change and try and work on it. Sometimes you do that in different ways. I've done it before where maybe we were working on a puzzle and I change our strategy, or to say, well, hey, we were doing it this way. It's not really working. Why don't we try a different way? Right. And so that's part of working with change. Or, mommy's always done this in the morning and that's not working anymore. What do you think mommy could do differently to reach, to achieve this goal? Which it's okay to have goals. That's a good part. But then you want to figure out how you work on the process, right? And as far as the new things, talk to them, ask them what are some new things they want to try. This is great at the beginning of the year. You ask them what they want to learn, what's something new that they want to learn at the beginning of the year as part of a New Year's resolution. And then post that up somewhere and keep coming back to it. Make sure you schedule time for them to try and learn that. And as they learn it, you will see their confidence grow. It's hard sometimes to maintain a positive attitude, and it's hard to demonstrate that. And my best advice there is just make sure you're getting enough self-care for you, that you're getting breaks, and tell your kids when you need breaks, and tell your spouse when you need breaks. Hey, I worked full time and now I'm home doing all the house stuff. I need a break so I can be my best self, my best spouse, my best parent, my best friend, to everyone else. Because if you don't do that, if you don't put the oxygen mask on you first, then you're not going to end up helping anyone. And it's going to be really hard to do all of these things that you're wanting to do. And if you're watching this video, then you're interested in changing and growing and being better. So make sure you take care of yourself so that you have the energy to be better. And you know what? Model failing forward and learning from it, and model laughing at yourself. I tell you what, I've tried lately to incorporate some new skills that I was trying to learn, like that Nordic hamstring exercise. And when I fell flat on my face, I laughed. Why? Because it was funny. I mean, if I were watching myself, I would have laughed at me. And then when the kids did it and they laughed too, because they model us. So you've got to model these behaviors. So here's a video about featuring Sesame Street and how they talk about growth mindset. And I wanted to share this one with you just because I think Sesame Street always does a great job with this stuff. So I'm going to make sure that we are sharing exactly what we need. Okay, good.
When you want to do something that's new and it seems really, really hard to do, you feel like quitting, you feel you're through. Well, I have some advice for you. Don't give up. Keep on trying, you're gonna make it. I ain't lying, don't give up. Don't ever quit. Try and you can do it. Don't give up. Yeah. If you want to catch a ball, but you're having no luck at all, the ball hits your head, it hits your nose, it hits your belly, your chin and toes. Well, try again. Keep on trying, and soon then you'll put your hands out in the air. You'll catch that ball, yes, this I swear. Don't give up. Keep on going, you're on a ball, so keep on going. Don't give up. Don't ever stop. Try, and you'll come out on top. Don't give up. You got yourself new roller skates. You put them on and you feel great. You stand up, but then you fall. Don't think you can skate at all. You get back up and then you trip. You skip and tip and slip and flip. Well, try some more, and soon you're skating across the floor. So give up, keep on moving, you're gonna get there. Just keep on grooving, don't give up, don't pack it in. Try, and you will win. Don't give up. No, don't give up. No, don't give up. No, don't give up. No, don't give up.
it go.
These no look right.
Oh, we'll never get this.
Oh, you missed the drum.
No.
There. 2 plus 2. Oh boy. Mama will never get it right.
You tried to add, but the numbers came out wrong. You tried to sing, but you didn't know the whole song. You tried to cook, but the food it didn't taste right. You tried to dunk, but you didn't get enough hype. You didn't do it right now, but keep trying. You learn how. You just didn't get it yet, but you'll get it soon, I bet. That's the power of the yet. Yet. That's the power of the yet. Yet. That is what you get with the power of the yet. Come on, you tried to ride, but you couldn't make the letter R. You tried to jump, but you didn't make it very far. You tried to drum, but you couldn't find a downbeat. You tried to dance, but you tripped on your own feet. Just breathe, don't lose control. Keep trying and you reach your goal. You just didn't get it yet, but you'll make it soon, I bet. That's the power of the yet. Yet. That's the power of the yet. Yet. Ready, get set with the power of the yet. Break it down now. There's no mountain you can climb. It just takes a little time. 'Cause you got what it takes. Just learn from your mistakes. Try again, and one day you'll step up and then you try to add and you get the right answer. You sing the song and you be a great dancer. You dunk the ball and you make the right letter. Everything you do it better. This is what you get. 'Cause this is what you get. 'Cause this is what you get with the power of the yet. That's the power of the yet. And that is what you get. And that is what you get. And that is what you get with the power of the yet.
I thought Sesame Street did a pretty good job. So now we've talked about some ways to help your kids develop a growth mindset. Okay, let's talk about some other things that can help your child break down that pattern of perfectionism. Another way to help perfectionist children and teenagers is to get rid of that black and white thinking, that all or nothing, that right or wrong. And again, trying to push that the process is of getting to wherever they get to is the main objective, right? I am not sure what's starting right now, but there is a loud noise. Speaking of imperfect, this is definitely an imperfect session today. Anyway, so let's talk about other ways to overcome perfectionism. One way is to squash ants. So ants, not the bug, but automatic negative thoughts. A lot of us have them. And I deal with this with a lot of adults, children, pretty much every age has automatic negative thoughts. And so as part of that, I often have people confront their automatic negative thoughts. So what do we do? Well, I have people when they have automatic negative thoughts come up, and when they come up often, right? Often I have them figure it out. So doing things like they write down in a journal, what was the situation that where these automatic negative thoughts came up? writing down exactly what the thoughts were and as many of the thoughts as they can think of. This is stream of consciousness, right? So this is really letting your kids, just write everything down they can think of. And that's really important. From there, what emotions did they feel? And if you want to, look up the feelings wheel, and that gives your child a myriad of emotions that they can pay attention to that will help them as far as identifying the right emotion. Mad, sad, glad really won't cut it, right? You want to be specific. You want to be irritated, elated, ashamed, embarrassed, right? All of those things are very specific words. And then you want your child to focus on how did their body feel. This one is oftentimes harder for kids because they're not paying attention to how their body feels. But their body usually recognizes that they have these emotions before the thoughts come in. So if they start to recognize how their body feels, whether their stomach feels tight or their head starts to ache or they have sweaty palms or they feel hot or cold, that gives them a sign of what's about to happen. And once they know how their body is feeling when these automatic negative thoughts are about to come, they can begin, and they're more aware of it, they can begin to have their body warn them and then stop them before they start. The last thing we do is we talk about the outcome. These automatic negative thoughts saying, I'm stupid, I'm not smart enough, I'm never going to get it, right? All these automatic negative thoughts that we have, that voice inside of them, right? I'm an awful person. I'm stupid. I mean, I could go on for days about how many automatic negative thoughts people say to themselves, right? You want to do a few things. So you go through those questions and have them write that down. Then take a breath, have them go back and say, okay, well, this thought says that you're stupid. What data, what facts do you have that support that? Well, I messed up on this problem. Does one problem make you stupid, right? So you really break it down with your child. I have a lot of other facts about this, this project that you actually got to go to the county science fair, or you won an award for this, or you brought home an 8 out of 8, or, whatever the things are. Or I saw you work really hard on this and you told me you read this book the other day and you told me about the whole book. Stupid people can't do that, right? Like however you want in your own words to talk about that. But you see how you give them all sorts of data that is counter to what that automatic negative thought is. Because oftentimes you have to remember, thoughts aren't who we are. And oftentimes they're lying. It's just our brain getting worried that something bad's going to happen. So it tries to make things look scary. Okay. So then you confront the thought. Then if they're still saying, well, yeah, but I got this wrong, so I must be stupid. Well, is that helping you get the right answer? Then you're definitely get, well, no. Okay, well, what would be something more productive you could say that you could replace this negative thought with that might help you change the outcome, right? And if they can't get it when you ask that, ask them about their best friend. And you say, okay, well, if your best friend got this problem wrong, what would you say to them? And that one for kids usually works. They'll go, oh, well, I would tell them they'll get it, but they'll do better next time. It's like, okay, well, what else could you say to them? Well, I said, what if you were going to help them get the right answer? How would you help them, right? And you really keep asking questions. And that will really help your child to push through realizing that these negative thoughts aren't who they are, and they don't have to be. And as parents, we have to remember not to use those automatic negative thoughts too. When we're driving down the highway and we go, oh, that stupid idiot just cut me off. Guess what? We're teaching our kids that fixed mindset, that person must be an idiot because they cut you off. As opposed to, wow, I'm really irritated this person cut me off. And then kind of, if you want to continue to talk about it, you can say, I really hope they're racing off to something important, or, maybe they should take a driving class, whatever. You can kind of have fun with it, but you can recognize how your own words are where this is coming from. So when you do something, you mess something up, laugh about it, talk about what you learned, right? Talk about the process of getting better. And it doesn't mean it's easy, right? So that's important to say, like, oh, you'll get it next time, kid, right? after a while, that doesn't feel genuine to the child, especially if they're still working and struggling. So how can we help them reach success? There's something in the world of education called scaffolding. And what this means is we just, when you are trying to paint a wall, right? You start on the bottom, you paint, and then eventually you need a scaffold or something you can climb up to get you to that next stage. And that's exactly what we do with learning. So we create situations that are achievable. If your child wants to learn how to play a sport, or they want to learn how to play an instrument or a dance, or they really love writing and they're getting frustrated that they're not doing as well in the class as they would like. Okay. Then you start creating goals for them. Okay. And the goal might not be at first, you're going to get an A in this class. Now, if they got a B plus and they want to get an A, I would say that's achievable, right? But if they were getting a D, okay, well, maybe we started like, hey, let's work to a C or a B or whatever. You're working towards the process. You want to focus on the process, but you do set goals for them that feel achievable. Okay. So you don't start by saying, hey, we're going to climb Everest tomorrow. That would be an unachievable goal if you haven't prepared for it. And a lot of people do stuff like that and it doesn't end well. Okay. So how do you set the goals? How do you know what goals to set? Well, you start at the goal, and we've talked about this before with goal setting. You start at the goal and then you work backwards. And when you work backwards, you start to set smaller goals. Okay, well, if you want to get an A, what is it going to take to get an A? Well, I have to do well on my weekly quizzes. Okay, well, what's going to help you do well on your weekly quizzes? Well, studying for the weekly quizzes. Okay, well, how do you study? Well, I could do this. And then maybe there's a little discussion on how to study. Well, I don't really know how to study. Okay, so we need to learn how to study so that you can do this. Okay, and you keep working backwards and until you get to these really small goals that seem easy to do. Well, the first thing I'm gonna do when I get home is I'm gonna take out my school computer. That seems pretty easy, right? And then you can do something, we do this with behavior all the time with little kids. It's a behavior tracker. You keep track. So every week, how did you do? Did you do this step? Did you do that step? And they check off, and they keep checking off. And just like our little Fitbits and all other things we do to monitor steps and other things, when we see that we've done a little bit better, it feels really good. And we want to praise that. Hey, you just made it 2 more steps than you did last time. That's great. When you see your kids struggle, resist the urge to step in and take over for them. Let them feel the struggle. Learning is hard. Part of growth is painful. Okay. And if they don't experience that, then when they finally do, they're not going to know what to do with it and they won't want to do it. So let them, what we call, fail softly. Give them little things that when they fail, it doesn't feel catastrophic. Okay, so ways to do that. They're learning to ride a bike. Make sure you put elbow pads and knee pads and a helmet on them. So if they fall off, it doesn't hurt as bad. Maybe have them start in an area where it's like on wood chips or on really flat grass. So if they fall again, it doesn't hurt as bad, right? For a school assignment, maybe you just have them write an outline. Awesome, you got the outline done. That feels good. So you can see how there are ways to fail softly. So if they mess up a little bit, it's easily recoverable. And then they just work towards the next step. The important thing for you is to make sure that you continue to enjoy the process and you continue to praise the process, talk and speak in positive ways, and like Kintsugi, take mistakes and try and make something beautiful out of it. And the more you do that, you can start to instill a growth mindset. You talk about what you learned from something that messed up, and you can even do that when it's not even your own. You can watch, I know I use sports as a metaphor a lot, but they're so easy to use. You can watch a sporting event and see where somebody made a mistake and go, okay, well, what did we learn from that? Like if you were watching this and you were going to play this team next, like how would you approach this differently? Or you might do it in watching something else. Maybe it's a performance, right? And you notice something, you're like, what would you do differently? Looking for ways to improve things is a way to help kids learn through the process of recognizing that just because something wasn't the way you expected doesn't mean you can't work towards an expectation. And reminding them that there's no such thing as perfect. And it's actually the imperfections that make us beautiful. And it's those imperfections and those mistakes, it's the mistakes that make us stronger and more resilient, which is what gets us through the hard times. So I hope this was helpful for you tonight. I made lots of mistakes during the session tonight, so I am modeling the behavior, and I've learned that I have to remind my family to and turn off some certain things in my office so that sounds don't come through, and turn on sound optimization so that you can hear my videos. All sorts of fun things. We'll get through this together, and I hope you still got the message across. Have a great night, and I will talk to you all soon.